Thank you to everyone who has listened to ToonCast Classic, ToonCast Beyond. This is TFG and Mike. As I say at the end of this podcast, this will be the final episode of ToonCast Beyond for now. It will come back. In this episode, please do not judge me on only having watched the first 5 or 6 episodes of Season 1 of Gargoyles. I do love the show. Out of the episodes I've watched, I absolutely love it. I do want to watch more, but during this recording and during the time that this episode has been delayed, I've had some illnesses come up, muscle pains and all that kind of thing, and I'm in the process of eventually moving. So, yeah, I tried my best to watch as much as I could. So, without any further ado, without any more rambling from me, enjoy ToonCast Beyond, Episode 60, Gargoyles. You guys have been waiting since ToonCast Classic for this, so enjoy.
Beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination.
1,000 years ago, superstition and the sword ruled. It was a time of darkness. It was a world of fear. It was the age of gargoyles. Stone by day, warriors by night. We were betrayed by the humans we had sworn to protect, frozen in stone by a magic spell for 1,000 years. Now here in Manhattan, the spell is broken, and we live again! We are defenders of the night. We are gargoyles.
Hello and welcome to episode 60 of ToonCast Beyond, brought to you by the Geekcast Radio Network. I am your host, TFG and Mike, and joining me to conclude ToonCast Beyond for now is Steve Megatron. Hello.
Hello.
And Sketch 1984. Hello.
Hey.
I'm trying to remember. Well, Steve was on Steve was on episode 58, Sketch was on episode 59, because Steve was with me when we did that Frozen crap, and then Sketch was with me when we did something much better, Johnny Test. So, there's all those jokes out of the way, and today we're going to be giving you listeners something you've been begging for since 2009. Since the overall branding of ToonCast on the GCRN, people have asked me to do the Gargoyles cartoon. When are you going to get to Gargoyles? When are you going to get to Gargoyles? And I remember the show, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but it just never, when I set out to do ToonCast Classic, Gargoyles wasn't at the forefront of my brain. I wanted to get all the classic Looney Tunes stuff out of the way, I wanted to get the Peanuts stuff out of the way, SWAT Cats, all that stuff. And it's taken, in total of the overall branding of the ToonCast brand for GCRN, it's been 6 years since we started ToonCast Classic. It's been 4 years since we started ToonCast Beyond. And it's taken that long to get here, but we are finally here, and we're going to talk about Gargoyles. Any initial thoughts, gentlemen, before we get into this?
Who wants to go first?
Whoever talks first.
Okay.
Just don't talk over each other.
All right. I guess I'll go first. Back when I was a wee lad and Gargoyles was first on the air, I believe my initial impression was, what is this on Disney Afternoon? This is nothing like anything else on Disney Afternoon. This is really cool, but I don't know if I get it.
It was bonkers that they had this show on Disney Afternoon.
I mean, this was around the time that Batman the Animated Series was airing, so it's not the only thing of its kind at the time, but still, this show is remarkable for what they got away with and all of the above, but it's just the tone is so different from everything else on the Disney Afternoon. I was like, yeah, Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop, Gargoyles. Gargoyles? Medieval stuff? What Scotland? What's going on here?
Yes, you are right. Well, Gargoyles was not the only one around at the time. It was the only one that Disney had ever done, and they've never gone back to it.
This is
and they never will. and that they never. Disney has it.
It doesn't exist in their world.
It doesn't exist in their world anymore, and it's also it's kind of like one of those things. And this is 1994. This is 2 years before the first Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie. It's like, your mission should you choose to accept it, and if you get caught or killed, the secretary will disavow any knowledge of your. And it's exactly what Disney did after it finished, and I think they on purpose for the third season changed it so much to see if they could make it to see if they could mold the show to where they wanted it to go.
Boy, it's really fascinating to know how what Disney wanted to do with Gargoyles eventually was kind of like what they originally, like what Greg Weisman and his team actually kind of wanted to do at the beginning, like their first thoughts, because they wanted to make something like Gummy Bears, apparently. Apparently, the Gummy Bears was a big inspiration for Gargoyles, and in retrospect, that blows my mind. I mean, I see the similarities, the same kind of setting. There's monsters, all of that, but then you flash forward to the future. But through all of the other, all of the pitches that they did, eventually they came to what is Gargoyles. Oh my gosh, phone, really?
Professionalism on ToonCast Beyond, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Sketch answers his phone call. Steve, what were your initial impressions of Gargoyles? Do you even remember watching it as a kid or no?
Is that a stupid question? Or I remember. I grew up with it. There was a lot of shows I watched. Pretty much everything that was on television. I remember the show very well just because of the fact that most of the cast is from Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yes.
And my favorite character was Xanatos, which is Jonathan Frakes, who was also my favorite TNG character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, funny thing is I don't think I ever saw this as a kid. I saw maybe 1 or 2 episodes. I think I saw the first 5, season 1, the first 5, and you couldn't even call it a miniseries then, because by then, in 1994, yes, they did do the multi-part opening arcs, but it wasn't like the 80s where you had the G.I. Joe mass device, which, whatever. You had the what was the other 5-parter? There were plenty of other 5-part things, but Gargoyles, while it's there, I don't, like, when I went back to watch it in preparation to do the show, I completely forgot that it was a 5-part series that started, 5-parter cartoon episode thing to start the whole thing off. And going back and watching it, it's like, oh my god, all these people from Star Trek. That's just kind of awesome. And having Keith David as Goliath and Jonathan Frakes as Xanatos, that's some damn good voice acting. They need to do, like, I almost wish that Keith David would have done the narration for Beyond Belief when Don LaFontaine could not do it anymore. Because, oh my god, that would be amazing. Jonathan Frakes and Keith David on Beyond Belief. That would have been awesome.
He is pretty stellar in that role.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, my first impressions were, I liked it. I thought it was interesting, but as a kid, I never really watched a lot of Gargoyles. And going back to it now, it's like, oh my god, this is so awesome. It's just so interesting because it didn't start the way I thought it was going to start. It starts where you're in the present day and you see all this battling going on. Well, you see the lightning bolts and sound effects for gun battle. And then they flash back to 994. And, they tell the whole story, and I was like, wow, this is some damn good cartoons for 1994. For those that don't know, the series features a species of nocturnal creatures known as gargoyles that turned to stone during the day, focusing on the clan led by Goliath. In the year 994, the clan lives in a castle in Scotland. Many are betrayed and killed by humans, and the remainder are magically frozen in stone until the castle rises above the clouds. A millennium later, in 1994, billionaire David Xanatos purchases the Gargoyles castle and has it reconstructed atop his New York City skyscraper.
That dude's loaded.
Yeah, that dude's loaded, but okay.
He just wanted to see if the gargoyles would come to life.
Yeah,
He had
that's
so much
all
money.
he cared about. He just wanted to see if the legend was true.
Yeah.
So he built a giant tower with their original tower as part of it.
Well, he had to transport it from its location and rebuild
I knew that.
it. And yeah, I know you knew that, but I'm just saying. I know there are a lot of skyscrapers in New York, but this thing is like beyond skyscraper. This is like,
Touching
almost
the clouds.
Yeah, I mean, it
is supposed to be above the clouds.
It is the Manhattan Project.
It's kind of like, hey, we're 30,000 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And it never, seriously, that skyscraper has to be, with the castle on top of it, has to be at least 10,000 feet in the air at the top of the castle.
Better be a fast elevator. Ain't nobody taking the stairs.
Where's my super suit?
What does that have to do with this?
Because Xanatos builds himself a clone of Goliath in the metal form.
Yeah, that's true. Notice he only built clones of Goliath. He didn't build clones of the other ones.
Actually, there were.
Oh, well. In the 5-parter, there were just clones of Goliath.
Yeah, well, there's other episodes where there's evil, dark versions of all of them. Shows how much you pay attention.
Shut up.
I think that shows how much he's watched since...
Yeah.
Oh, this is all off memory. I don't need to watch it.
No, he's talking about me. So we've got... we already mentioned the Star Trek cast a little bit, and we'll talk about them a little bit more and a little bit later. But the main cast, we have Tom Hernandez as Lexington, Ed Asner as Hudson, Bridget Bacco as Angela, Jeff Bennett as Brooklyn, and several other characters. Keith David as Goliath, obviously. Bulkhead himself and Patrick from SpongeBob. Bill Fagerbakke as Broadway. Jonathan Frakes as Xanatos, Sally Richardson as Elisa Maza, Marina Sirtis as Demona, and Frank Welker is the voice of Bronx.
Again, all things I by that time had figured out just because of watching so much stuff, because it was, before the time of the internet and IMDb.
You can always recognize Frank Welker's dog.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bennett, I knew who he was in there.
This was one of his earlier roles, though.
Yeah,
it is.
And he did the assistant to Xanatos, as well as.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So
yeah, he was had a bunch of characters on this show.
I love the twist they put on that character later on.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Yeah, so they also had in the show, they had Michael Dorn in the show, they had Brent Spiner, Colm Meaney, Avery Brooks, Nichelle Nichols, LeVar Burton, and a lot of other people. David Warner in there, Kate Mulgrew. So, I mean, a lot of Star Trek alumni were in this show.
2 years before he would become the leader, they had Matt Frewer in here.
yeah, he was in there.
Oh man, I mean, this voice cast just reads as a star-studded event.
Oh yeah, man, it's
God.
they went for real acting in this show,
which is why Disney doesn't support it. If you look, I'm just joking.
Wow.
I'm just joking. Partially. If you look at their DVD covers, even on IMDb, there's no mention of Disney on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could look at my DVD covers.
it just surprises me with some of the guest stars and some of the supporting cast because people like Biff, Thomas F. Wilson, is in this as Matt Bluestone.
But you have John Rhys Davies as Macbeth.
Yep.
Which was brilliant.
Some of the guest stars outside of Star Trek, you had Rob Paulsen as Helios.
Gotta have Rob Paulsen. It's a 90s cartoon.
That's true.
Yeah, you have Michael Bell in there. Tim Curry
Cam
is
Clark was in there, too.
Sidarius.
Tony Shalhoub.
Diedrich Bader.
Oh,
I knew that would get you. Cam Clark, Pat Fraley,
Yeah.
Diedrich was in there,
CCH
too.
Pounder, James Belushi.
Yeah, there's so
There's so much awesome talent in this show.
And as
Really
There's too much. I mean, you got Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. in here.
it's pretty
The
insane.
The voice talent is just insane on this cartoon, and you think about it. This show had 78 total episodes between 3 seasons. Regardless of how warped season 3 became, because they changed all the creative staff on it.
Well, you gotta also remember too. In addition, like the show, I don't think they really knew where they were going to take it at that point.
Yeah,
And also, around the time things started to change, they had a bunch of writers I've never heard of. There are a couple that we have talked to before. Eisenberg and Skir.
no, we have not talked to Eisenberg.
We haven't talked to him yet, but
Not yet, but we did
talked to
spend
Bob Skir. So.
2 hours with Bob Scare. I think to date that's our longest interview.
But we learned so much.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, what I love about Gargoyles, just going back and watching some of the season 1 stuff, is the animation, and like we've already, talked about the voice acting and the plot lines. You look at these characters, and they are, they're what I imagine to be in the Shakespearean times, the whole King Arthur time and all that stuff and everything else. And you look at what the humans did. It's essentially... it's kind of like the mistrust the Thundercats had for the humans at first when they came to Third Earth back in 1985, but it's in Gargoyles, it's a hell of a lot deeper because humans actually betrayed them. And, I mean, you just look at that and you can create so many awesome stories. And then when they, you fast forward through the millennia that they were asleep and they wake up in New York City and... Brooklyn and Lexington and Broadway. Oh man, the 3 of them. I love following them around because they learn so much and they want to, tell everybody. They want to tell Goliath about it. And I remember in that first 5-parter, they kept using words that Goliath is like questioning, like, dude, it's just something we learned. It's like they want to take in as much knowledge as they possibly can, and I just absolutely. As someone who probably as a kid would have needed to relate to that, find a relatable character, those 3 honestly would be the relatable characters for this because they're just so childlike in learning of, what this new time has for them. What are some of your thoughts on the series, Sketch?
Well, this show is just phenomenal, particularly for its time, but watching it now, the stuff that they did in this show, like there was an episode where Broadway accidentally shoots Eliza and has to cope with that while Goliath is looking for the person who shot Eliza, and you have all of that going on, and eventually they take down some arms dealers. And it's all like, that's kind of a Captain Planet-y story, but done way, way better. Like, way, way better. All completely serious. And there was blood. That's crazy. Blood in a Disney cartoon. It's crazy. And
That's probably why there's never been any blood in any Disney cartoon since, probably.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. But
It's a small world.
the writers just created this huge tapestry of this whole continuity that circles around and interchanges and interweaves, and it's just, there's so much to follow. The lore is so deep. It's just a fascinating specimen of an animated series to pick apart and find all these little things within it. And particularly if you're really into Shakespearean stories, I mean, Gargoyles is just so full of that kind of stuff. It's really a very unique animated series. I can't really think of anything quite like it, and it definitely stands the can't talk, stands the test of time. It's
Yes.
It holds up really well. The animation is beautiful. It still looks very good. I mean, the transfers are not that great because it's old and it wasn't really very well
It wasn't
maintained.
HD.
Yeah, it wasn't HD. But, if they actually remastered this show and brought it up to proper scale, I bet it would still look, like, fantastic. Unfortunately, they probably didn't keep good enough masters for doing that kind of thing. But there's just so much quality in this show. It's just a remarkable piece of work that people really need to see if they haven't seen it. And I'm bummed that when I was a kid, I didn't really pay attention to it. I caught a couple episodes here and there. I didn't end up seeing more of it until it was it was already in syndication, but when it was rerunning on cable, like on Toon Disney, I caught a bunch of episodes when it was on Toon Disney, and I was like, what's going on? This show got weird. There's all this kinds of crazy stuff happened. Like, some of the big reveals happened before I knew exactly why things were happening. I was like, oh wow, that they did that. That's some pretty amazing stuff. And it isn't until years later that I can fully appreciate all of the hard work and dedication that went into this phenomenal animated series. And, in retrospect, I wish I was paying more attention as a kid. I mean, I wasn't paying that much more attention to Batman, the animated series, and that I also regret. But at the same time, at least I was vaguely aware of what was going on with Batman. With Gargoyles, I don't know. I should have kept watching it. I really missed out on that. But thankfully, I can experience it now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if I regret not seeing it that much as a kid, because life was pretty hectic back then. But now going back, I'm glad that I can, sit down and watch a season or two or whatever. I will say that I wish Disney would come out and do a complete, even if it's a bare bones and has no special features on it, like you already said. Upscale it or shine, polish it up just a little bit. I wish they'd put out a complete series DVD set, because as of right now, as far as I know, it's only got season 1 and then season 2, volumes 1 and 2.
I think that's everything except for the Saturday morning episodes.
Yeah, the Goliath Chronicles. Yeah.
So I think I'm actually okay with that, but for completionist's sake, it'd be good if they put out the rest.
Yeah. Michael Reeves, who is one of the main writers on the show, this guy has done a lot of stuff. He for live action television, he wrote 2 episodes of Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. He wrote 1 episode of TNG. He wrote 1 episode of the 1990 Flash series. So, I wonder if he'll come back and write a new series episode. I doubt it. For animation, Batman Beyond, Batman Animated Series, Black Star, Centurions, Conan the Young Warriors, Dragon's Blood, Dungeons and Dragons, both the 80s version and the 2002 version of He-Man. He was on My Little Pony for a little while, I guess. He wrote Spider-Man Unlimited, Real Ghostbusters, Star Wars droids and Ewoks. And he also wrote for TMNT and the Transformers as well. The man can write. He just can. Between him and Eric Luke, they did an amazing job of the writing on this series. Steve, thoughts?
Well, as far as like third season, obviously it wasn't too stellar because it tanked after that. The first season had 13 episodes, second season had 52, and then third season had 13, and it just kind of waned and died. Most of which it was written by... Some of it was written by Greg Weisman, and some of it was written by some other people, but it died in that season, unfortunately. They did continue it in the comics, though, for about 3 years, in 2006 to 2009, and continued the animated series storyline and style, which unfortunately I didn't pick up, but at that time I was not collecting either, so yeah, unfortunately I didn't catch that. But the show overall, though, it's the complexity that's involved with it, and not only the story arcs and the character arcs, but it was great kind of having that not only the dark tone, but the kind of mythology of the past and in history involved with it, cutting into like kind of this Shakespearean type stuff, and also kind of making it like it is history.
Yeah, it would be interesting if this was a part of our own history, because I mean, you just imagine these mythological creatures that roam the skies. And see, originally, when I had originally looked at the series a few years ago, and I only glanced at it, I thought they could fly, and I found it interesting that they couldn't, that they could only glide on the air currents, as Goliath explains to Elisa Maza. So
it's like Batman.
Yeah. If you really think about it, between Goliath and Elisa, they're essentially Spider-Man and Terry Lee. Terry Lee is the female detective in Spider-Man the Animated Series, for those that don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Although Goliath and Elisa have more of a romantic involvement.
Yeah, I was pretty sure Terry Lee and Peter Parker never really had romance.
No, but I mean, like, the beginning aspects of it in the first few parts of the 5-parter, the beginning aspects of it are similar there. So, how would we stack up this show against? It doesn't even really have a same franchise. I mean,
unfortunately, it's one of those things that was touched once and then never revisited. Yeah. Not only in story element, but in the show itself. Like, it would be nice to actually see this have a revival today.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if they get all the cast back?
Even if they don't, let's put it this way. I mean, think of it this way. There's Transformers is big again. Ninja Turtles is big again. They've got a new DuckTales coming. They've got, a lot of these older shows are getting revivals. This would actually be the great time to bring back Gargoyles.
You could.
Yep. Whatever you do, just don't. Well, since it's a Disney property, it would go on Disney.
Don't you dare do it without Greg Weisman.
Don't you dare do a live action version.
No.
Well, what I was going to say was, they could bring it back as long as they don't put it on, and then I stopped myself to, say that horrible word, that horrible 2 words that begin with a C and an N. Then I realized, oh wait, it's Disney, so it would go on Disney XD.
Yeah, they don't do deals with the devil in the pale moonlight.
Yeah, thank God.
Oh, did I mention Cartoon Network?
Yeah. How does the show stack up with shows in the same genre? It really, as an action cartoon alone, it could stack up next to Batman the Animated Series, X-Men, Spider-Man, that kind of thing. But as a mythological kind of, I wouldn't even say, I don't want to say sci-fi fantasy because that just doesn't seem right. But
it's kind of a magic, like it. I would just kind of put it under fantasy. It's not really even sci-fi. I mean, it is to some degree, but it's mostly fantasy because it touches in that olden realm of the the knights in shining armor era, with Macbeth and everything else like that, and then it goes into modern day. With some technological advances and, the robo suits and stuff like that, but it's not really too advanced. I mean, you get the laser guns and everything else. So, I mean, there's that, some splicing and some weird stuff like that, but it's not, I would say that it could be sci-fi, but it kind of fits under the fantasy flag more so.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, there weren't a lot of fantasy cartoons in 1994.
There still aren't.
I mean... Well, yeah, I know there's still
King
aren't today,
Arthur and the Knights of Justice.
Oh, God.
Well, it had a good theme song.
Oh, my God. I can't believe you went there.
That's not a show. It doesn't exist. It's not in continuity.
But the funny thing is okay, yeah, I agree with Steve. Him saying that this is essentially a fantasy cartoon, but it's also an action cartoon. As an action cartoon, we can compare it to a whole bunch of things, but in its own specific genre of being a fantasy cartoon, it's one of a kind.
Well, even with it being fantasy, and it could still be an action under fantasy, because look at Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'd rather not.
Shut up, asshat. Anyways, but it also kind of pulls an Arrow in some regards, which you could say Arrow kind of copied this, but they do kind of go back in time and kind of show how people met people and how things happened. Mm-hmm. And then you have some of that kind of magic element in there, with Puck kind of being like the trickster, and then you have Macbeth who's got all these powers. And then you have kind of this weird cyborg gargoyle fusion, which is Goliath's brother.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the show that it's too good to ignore.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, which show from the previous decade is this most like? So this happened in '94. So in the '80s,
I think you want to think. In the '80s.
Well, it says previous decade, so. I mean, is there any cartoon in the '80s that this is comparable to?
Not completely.
No. Once again, it stands on its own. What else are you going to say, Sketch?
That's probably what's so great about it. At the time of the 90s, there was nothing that has ever been quite like it before. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to think, if you want to find something that's reasonably comparable to this show, you'd have to look at something that has a strong element of continuity and say something that involves maybe a bit of time travel, but more importantly, having a storyline that reaches back many, many, many years ago and has a deep lore because of that. And there aren't too many shows that do that kind of thing. But one show that I can think of, and this, instead of, say, medieval in Scotland, we have in ancient Japan, the 2003 Ninja Turtles.
That's true.
Samurai Jack.
Oh, there's also Samurai Jack.
Can't believe you went there.
That has a similar element of things happened in the past and now he's been sent to the future. That kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Please tell me we're not going to compare this to Highlander, the animated series.
I wouldn't know.
There's an animated series? I was doing that for your
benefit. That's the Scotland element.
I'd rather watch out of those. I mean, I love Gargoyles. But, like, if you were going to say trying to compare it to any of those other ones, I'd rather watch, like, Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century.
Yeah. Or Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
No.
All right, so GCRN Universal Ratings time, people. What are you going to rate this 0 to 5 stars, Steve?
I will give it a 5-star, which is rare.
I am only going to give it 3.5, which is liked it. It's only, I think that's fair for me since I've only watched the first 10 episodes of season 1. I will be watching more of it, and maybe I will do a little update episode later on. I do want to watch more of Gargoyles, but I really did like the show. What about you, Sketch? What are you going to rate it?
Boy, it's hard for me to decide whether this is actually worth a 5 or... Nah, I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Okay.
He's going to be impartial to it.
Yeah, because like you, I need to see more of it to truly give it a 5, but I feel like it's definitely 5 material. I mean, if you're thinking of the best animated action cartoons of all time, it's got to be Batman and this.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to be. And,
and
whichever one you prefer more.
And the story is just so good with it. Because
Yeah.
usually you sacrifice one or the other when you're trying to do that.
And they did not do that this time.
No.
It depended on which episodes of Batman that story was sacrificed on. But
Yeah, this was very rarely throwaway.
yeah.
Yeah, almost everything mattered.
Yes.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, come back with some ToonCast Beyond announcements and some other stuff to close out the show after this.
It's action. It's drama. It's comedy. It's Decian, the superhero webcomic. Decian's got superhero antics and sexy girls. Read it now at Decian.com. DASIEN.com.
It's Showtime Synergy. The latest review podcast from the Geekcast Radio Network is here. So join TFG1 Mike, Nicole Hailstorm, and myself, Lady Rec, as we will be reviewing all 65 episodes of Joe and the Holograms in a 25-episode-long podcast. You can find Showtime Synergy on iTunes and GeekCastRadio.com. We are the truly outrageous podcast that you want to be listening to.
Hey, I'm Gary.
I'm Mike.
I'm Chuck.
And I'm Justin. Join the four of us every week on the internet's #1 and longest-running G.I. Joe podcast, What's on Joe Mind?
It's Joe news, reviews, and interviews like you've never heard them before, delivered right to your MP3 player.
Our guests include Jason Marsden, Kevin Michael Richardson, and Matt Yang King from G.I. Joe Renegades, Larry Hama, Robert Adkins, and John Barber from IDW Publishing, and many more from around the online Joe community.
Yeah, it's guys talking about Joe. Think of it as Joe Talk meets Sports Talk. And we make fun of Chuck.
Right, and we... Hey, again?
Come on, Chuck. We're just kidding, kinda.
Sometimes Chuck makes fun of himself.
Right, and we... Okay, seriously, this is just getting ridiculous now.
It's What's on Joe Mind, every week on the Geekcast Radio Network, InsidePulse.com, Stitcher Smart Radio, and iTunes. Download and listen today.
I suppose I still can't say something about Transformers, can I?
Good. No.
What about sports?
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm Colin Baker.
My name's Fraser Hines.
Hi, I'm Daphne Ashbrook.
This is Andrew Cartmel.
Hi, this is Colin Spall.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisher-Becker.
This is Ian McNeice.
Hi, this is Travis Ritchie.
You listen to this Mark Who for Tunes.
Listen to Mark Who 42's Universe.
If you're into Doctor Who, listen to Mark Who 42's Universe. We always have the latest Doctor Who news, reviews, and interviews. We are available on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Geekcast Radio Network, and our home base, MarkWho42.net.
Mark Who 42, the meaning of life.
Pixels in the Animation is the Geekcast Radio Network's video game cartoon review show. We are covering every episode of 9 different video game cartoons. Join TV's Mr. Neil and myself, TFG and Mike, as we trek through multiple Mario tunes, Zelda, Captain N, Mega Man, Sonic, and we are also driving through Donkey Kong Country. Pixels in the Animation is 100 episodes of video game cartoon goodness, so tune in to help us find the Pixels in the Animation, which you can find every Wednesday on iTunes and www.geekcastradio.com. Alright folks, we are back, and it is time to give you, the listeners, some inside info on what's going on with ToonCast Beyond. I know episodes have kind of been a little lax lately. We did have, we had DreamWorks, and then I took a year or so off, and because, as I've already said on other episodes, DreamWorks essentially killed me.
That's why you don't.
Through all those...
Small doses.
Yeah.
Small doses through future
mutants.
We are such nerds.
Yes, we are.
Or geeks, as it were.
Yes, we are. So, ToonCast Beyond has had 60 total numbered episodes. We did have the Animation Direction Spotlight, which was, I think, 11 or 12 episodes. We've been going strong since June 10th of 2011, because June 1st of 2011 is when we retired ToonCast Classic with episode 100, and we started ToonCast Beyond 9 days after that. So we've been going strong pretty much for 4 years now. ToonCast Beyond is going to be going through some changes. We're going to be preparing for our first annual 25 Days of Christmas this year. Hopefully that can come off without a hitch, or without anybody stealing Santa's sleigh. So, yeah, I know, right? Don't stop the Santa man. Anyway, so we're at 60 episodes. The original ToonCast Classic had 100 total numbered episodes, so in total the brand has had 160 podcasts. Because of I may be moving in the next few months or the next few weeks, I don't know exactly when. As of right now, this will be the final episode until December 1st of 2015. Where, as I said, we'll be doing 25 Days of Christmas. I couldn't tell you what we're going to be covering for that. I know one of them will, at least one episode will be A Year Without a Santa Claus, because I know Steve likes that cartoon.
Yes!
I do have 2 full years of 25 Days of Christmas planned out, this year and next year. It's just getting to be able to find the cartoons and watch them. And I'm not just talking about the cartoon movies, folks. I'm not talking about the Peanuts thing where you can just go buy it. I'm not talking about Rudolph. I mean, we're going to do all that. But I'm also talking about Christmas episodes from stuff like Kim Possible or... Oh, God, I know I'm going to regret this because I might actually end up puking on air, but if there was an episode of... a Christmas episode of Ren and Stimpy... That's the one thing I will draw the line at, and I will do if there was a Christmas episode of Ren and Stimpy. That's the only Ren and Stimpy thing I will ever do.
Now.
On the shut up,
hey, Steve.
No, I'm not saying the shitty MTV
one.
I'm not saying the shitty MTV one. I would do the Nickelodeon one. The other, or no, Spike TV or whatever.
Whatever. That
I won't do that one. That was just disturbing as hell. I couldn't. Bleh.
So I know I have 2 lists full of 50 days worth of Christmas stuff. It's just finding the stuff, getting it together, getting whoever wants to be on those episodes to watch the stuff and get it done. So hopefully this year we will start our first annual 25 Days of Christmas. And then after that, ToonCast Beyond needs to go under a major microscope overhaul. We're going to redo the format. We're going to redo a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to change everything up a little bit to make it more conversational, and we may do something similar to what's going on over at Remote Control, which is our new TV podcast thing. I'm not going to say exactly what that is just yet, but things are changing. ToonCast Beyond is evolving, or I guess you could say
we went over to TCRI and got some mutagen. You ain't going to recognize this bitch.
Yeah. I would have gone with, I guess you could say we're digivolving, but...
I thought you were an 80s kid.
I am, but I know what the hell Digimon is.
Are we going to digivolve into champions?
I don't know.
That would be a great
that.
No, we're going to digivolve into Ultimate.
Oh, good Lord.
Mike is speechless. We've destroyed his mind.
I do know one cartoon series that if Netflix continues to release seasons for it that we will be covering is the original Yu-Gi-Oh series. I love that show, so I know that'll be at least
So
one
you're
thing.
saying, Mike, it's time to do.
Yes.
You've activated
so
my trap card.
Yes. That is what's going on with ToonCast Beyond. Episode 60 right now, Gargoyles, will be our final episode until 25 Days of Christmas this year in 2015. And then after that, the show's going to go under a major retooling and reinvention and revisioning and all that stuff. Sketch, where can the fine people interact with you online, sir?
Well, the best way to get a hold of me is to follow me on Twitter at Sketch1984. I also have a Tumblr, sketch1984.tumblr.com. And if you're feeling like asking me questions, I answer questions at ask.fm/sketch1984. And since it relates to Gargoyles, I recently went to MomoCon in Atlanta, and we did an interview for... well, it wasn't ToonamiFaithful.com, but like the same ToonamiFaithful.com staff also have another website for other geek things. It's geekyinc.com. You can see our interview with Greg Wiseman, which I am on. You can see my personage. I asked the Spider-Man question. And don't fidget like my co-host. But his answers about gargoyles are really fascinating, so people should definitely give that a listen.
Awesome. What about you, Steve? Where can people find you online?
At SCP-21. And on my podcast, at Altered Geek. I have many podcasts.
You couldn't even remember the name.
Well, no, I was distracted because there is a Christmas episode of Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, Christ.
So you must do it now.
Son of a bitch.
What have you done?
Anybody that wants to co-host for that torture episode, feedback at
Mike,
geekcastradio.com.
you idiot!
Anyone that wants to hear me puke live on the air.
Oh, it's going to be a good one.
Gee, Mike, it won't be so bad.
And I'll give you the episode name. It's Son of Stimpy.
Oh, no.
Episode 7 of Season 2.
I don't even have a catchphrase anymore for ToonCast. I got to come up with a new catchphrase for ToonCast Beyond. We will catch you next time, folks, when we hit 25 Days of Christmas 2015 here on ToonCast Beyond.
Join us as Stimpy finds his fart and joins Ren for Christmas.